It is morning huddle time.
Good morning. It is morning huddle time. I'm Chad Prinky here alongside Stacy Holzinger, as always.
The nature of the beast is the competitive nature of the industry.
Is if you can see it, you can be it.
It's all about the people. The people are what make it great and worthwhile.
Yeah, anything that I think helps build the story behind the company is great.
These are the things that that you're like, we don't need that because we have plenty of work right now. Got it. But if you don't do it now, where are you going to have work in the future? The Morning Huddle Construction Show is fortunate to have 5 sponsors for Season 7, helping us to spread the word and create positive change in the construction industry. And we want to give a shout out to each of them and thank them now. First is Katz Abosch. This is a middle market accounting firm with a deep specialization in construction, tax, audit, accounting, fantastic group of people. Next is Lawrence Law. This is a boutique law firm that works with contractors and helps them with their day-to-day legal needs as well as all of their most significant legal challenges that they might run up against. Lawrence Law. Then we have Sandy Spring Bank, which is a regional bank in Maryland with a group of people who really understand what the needs of construction businesses are and who partner with you to achieve your financial aims. So Sandy Spring Bank. And then we have Marsh McLennan Agency, bonding and insurance professionals who really just have unparalleled insight into the construction industry. They're the best in the business. And then lastly, we have Genesis AEC. And Genesis is a full service architecture, engineering, and construction management firm with a deep specialization in the life sciences industry. We also happen to have some of their folks help us with guest hosting from time to time. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Let's get back to the show.
Good morning, everyone. Chad is visibly not here today. He is at a leadership conference in Florida, so to substitute him, we were having Mark Drury, good friend of mine, join us today. So I just wanted to read his bio really quickly and then welcome him to the show. And then we'll get right into it and interview Dr. Montgomery. So Mark Drury of Mark Drury and Associates has recently retired in 2021 after 44 years from employment to focus on workforce development and family. He remains active in many construction industry associations, business and community groups, serving on committees and boards. He's a staunch advocate for construction workforce development locally and nationally in government, industry, and academia. He remains a mentor, a coach, a sponsor for leaders and rising stars. And as a consultant, he guides and advises growth-minded construction business leaders in building the structure and the team to provide strategic and sustainable growth. With that being said, welcome, Mark, to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
I pressed all the right buttons, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So we want to welcome Dr. Montgomery to the show. We're going to talk about the DC Resilience Hub and Center at FH Faunteroy. Can you give us a brief introduction on how you learned about the center and how you know Dr. Montgomery, and then we'll bring her in to introduce herself?
As part of my workforce development role in the area, I am the president of the DC Student Construction Trades Foundation, and in 2000 we were looking for a place to hold our internship sessions and our training sessions, and through our contacts in the Deanwood area, we came upon the Faunteroy Enrichment Center and Dr. Montgomery. And I first met Dr. Montgomery in June of 2020. And when we moved in, and right off the bat, we hit it off. We had alignment in terms of workforce development, in terms of the mission of building community, building people. And we've worked together on several things, some workforce things, some boot camps, some community issues, and she's become a good friend.
Yeah.
So let's get Dr. Montgomery on.
All right, let's get her on. Welcome, Dr. Montgomery.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah. Could you give us a brief introduction about yourself?
Wow. Okay. That's a very difficult one when I'm asked that. So Estelle-Marie Montgomery, I like to think of myself as a catalyst, as an executive catalyst. I started off, I have a PhD in the neurosciences, neuropsychology. I started off in research, and then very quickly I switched over to the private industry for working with an IT service company. And this was in Europe. This was a long time ago. I like to say that I acquired about 5 MBAs because what that company did allow me to do was garner a lot of experience in various ways, right? Whether it was in acquisition, process optimization, cross-cultural effectiveness across projects, and so on and so forth. So after about 10 years there, I decided to become an independent consultant. And that was an amazing decision on my part because it allowed me to stay grounded as a professional, but also have the flexibility as a new mom to also be there for my children. And that was how I found my balance in feeding my ambitions, my professional ambitions, and also my maternal ambitions as well. So we're going to fast forward. As an independent consultant, very much involved in transformative projects, kind of a fixer. There's an organization, a situation, you go in, you assess, you develop the strategy, you say, okay, this is how you go. I have guest lectured at Georgetown University in the leadership courses. So these are all things that, sort of several hats. One of my business associates came to me in regards to the FH Faunteroy Community Enrichment Center. I said, hey, Doc, familiar with your work, really like how you do what you do. And it would appear that we have been selected to become DC's first pilot resilience hub. And we're not quite sure what that means.
Mm-hmm.
So this conversation took place around COVID, 2020. And so in the capacity of sort of that consultant hat, I came in looking at the situation. Well, as you're planning life happens. And so life happened in 2021 when there was a leadership change. And there I was having, studied, as it were, this situation. And the board at the time said, well, there has been a leadership change. What do you think about, at least at interim, looking at how you can lead this organization and bring this vision to fruition? And like a good consultant, what I had planned to do was continue to assess the situation, tie it up into a nice little bow, and give it to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was 3.5 years ago.
You got roped in.
I got roped in. I fell in love with not just the project, the vision that the community put together, but just the people, the folks that you impact, the lives that you impact on a daily. So with everything I've said, you can imagine I don't come from a, community capacity building background. And so what I'm doing is pouring all of my experience as a scientist and as a corporate executive, I guess, into this project. And so far, so good.
Yeah. Can you define what a resilience hub is for our audience?
This is a very good question. And depending on where you are in what you're doing, when you hear resilience hub, it's going to mean different things. And all of those things are actually true. We are implementing a very strict best practice of what a resilience hub is. Let me just, if I may, reverse for a second. In 2016, the Ward 7 Resilience Hub Community Coalition, this is what they're called now. In 2016, it was called the Equity Advisory Group, that were formulated to discuss the issue of what does a resilience hub mean and what could it bring to Ward 7. This discussion took place with community leaders in Ward 7 and with DC Department of Environment and Energy. And what they decided upon in studying Resilience Hub and all of its various components is that we would follow the a more stricter definition of a community asset that transforms to meet the community, serve as a safe space, develop programming that addresses day-to-day stressors, and prepare the community for acute disruptions. So as a Resilience Hub, what we're doing is transforming what was a small community center into a more robust space, expanding from 2,000 to 7,000 square foot, expanding our program along workforce development and literacy, health and wellness, emergency readiness and preparedness, and also developing community cohesiveness through community engagement programming. And we do this intergenerationally. And through everything that we're doing, we have the focus on creating sustainability and really instilling resiliency, not only in terms of our location. So when we think about the power systems that we're putting in place and the building, how we're building out the structures, but also in the individuals that are partaking in our programming that is offered for free. All of our program is offered for free.
Very good. So our audience is mostly construction folks, and one of the big things in the construction industry is workforce development. Where do we find talent? Where do we find skilled people? How does building a stronger and more resilient community benefit employers in their search for future talent? How does that come about?
Well, one thing to keep in mind is that DC is very dedicated to its first source agreement, right?
Yes.
So what we have become very familiar with is indeed construction companies that said, okay, we need to fulfill this first source agreement. Where do we find people? And this is where I think we are really filling in a gap. We are solving for that question for the construction industry. Our focus on workforce development and literacy, first and foremost, is about how do we fortify individuals in our communities that are either underemployed, unemployed, or young people. So those are on the adult level, but young people who actually post high school are lost for whatever reasons. And we can, spend another 5 shows on that. But the point is that post high school, they are directionless. Mm-hmm. And so what we are doing is cultivating a framework that we have now tested and tried many, many times, and it's proving to be successful, where we engage with all of these, you would say vulnerable, right, population, because that is where that's where you'll find your gems, right? And really spend the time to meet each individual. So we're not a training center, okay? What we do is meet individuals that fall under all of these categories and say, okay, where are you? And when Mark and I very earlier on were talking about workforce development, there were 3 things he talked about: ambition, attitude, and aptitude. And I absorbed that, Mark. And yes, I did. I'll give you credit, but I took it. We took it and we ran with it. We say when we're doing our assessments of each individual, meeting them where they are is understanding where they stand in these areas, regardless of their past, regardless of their educational level. If you haven't finished high school, we're going to figure out with you how to get you there with a GED, right? So what we do is figure out what the innate gifts, each person has a gift within them. And what are those gifts and talents that a person has that could match, right, the search in the construction industry, whether they're plumbers, carpentry, mechanical, solar installers, whatever it may be. Because for us, given the demand in that industry, what we try to tell people is get this basic skills training in core. Start on a career pathway. We don't train folks for a job. What we're doing is fortifying that individual with professional skills, essential skills, the technical skills, yes, but it's a gateway for them, either to further in that specialization area or start in that construction industry and have their eyes be open to other possibilities. But the point is that there is economic mobility, and they too can partake in the revitalization of the community, because that's what's happening, right? The high demand in the construction industry has to do with the revitalization of these same communities. So on several levels, we are extremely dedicated to this area of workforce development and literacy. And we have a true partner. We've had a great partnership with Mark and the Construction Academy in this, and formulating and refining. And let me just add one more thing. After you finish a training, usually there's a hyper focus on, okay, they finished the training, they must land a job, right? So we work with the employers on that. We do job fairs to get that match. Well, sometimes there isn't a match. We don't drop anyone. Even when there is a match, we still follow them, okay? But especially when there isn't a match, we still hold on to that individual, and we engage them in another program that we call Bridges to Success. This is where we work with them as individuals to still find a place for them. And it may not be with that first set of construction companies that we did the job fair with. But later down the line, there may be some other opportunities, right? So, and then we continue to skill them up. If there are other areas in construction where they can become certified, we make sure that we guide them through that.
Very good. Now, we work together on a few boot camps, and we see success in those construction boot camps, which is basically teaching NCCR core. But investment in vetting the candidate up front, making an investment in reviewing their backgrounds and looking for, deriving where their ambition is, where their attitude is, and where their aptitude is, and are they a fit for construction at all, is important. But we also see it as an often neglected step in development of these cohorts. Can you speak about the values derived from successful implementation of a vigorous vetting process?
Yeah. So not to be underestimated, our very first workforce development program that we rolled out, we were crunched for time. And so we were not able to do this extensive assessment. And that taught us a lot of lessons. There are no failures, right? You always take the lessons and move forward. And what we came to realize is that you cannot rush through anything. To rush through it is still to cause a compromise in the objectives that you're wishing to reach. And yes, the construction industry can be fast paced. Yes, the demands are high, but if you are looking for high quality individuals and you are committed in the investment of developing these individuals within your company, then really that upfront investment in sitting with individuals, understanding not only the socioeconomic challenges that individual is faced with, but maybe also the behavioral health. Again, our approach is very holistic. We're not assuming everyone is just ready. And when we talk about literacy, we're also checking to see where the computer literacy for this individual is. And you may say, well, they're going to be doing construction. What does that matter? Well, that individual is a member of a family. Whether that they themselves are a caregiver of elders or a caregiver to children that are their own or not their own, we live in a computer age. Being able to log on to certain sites to take care of business, whether it's school business or whatever it may be, we find that some people are not computer literate. So when we talk about essential skills and skilling them up, we want to make sure that they're off the job, off their career lives, are also being supported in the way that they're trained and in the way that they're supported. So that upfront investment is very important for that reason, because you don't want them trained, land on the job, and all of these challenges are still burdening them. So now they can't show up at 6 a.m. at the job site, and you're wondering and you're getting frustrated. We just trained you and you're not showing up. right? Which is a value that we certainly push through all the training, right? Construction industry means early start.
Yep.
But let's say we now have successfully guided an individual through all of their challenges and also skilled them up in the training and the technical training component, and they have successfully landed a job, and they have ambition, Mark.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we drop them. That's where I'm also seeing a lack of investment is allow us to still continue to manage, right, that individual in their successful landing, because they will hit a roadblock along the way. Certainly in that first year, there will be something that pops up. And what better than to have an organization that has walked that whole journey with the individual and understands and goes, oh, I know what we need to do right here. Let's just cut it right here. We know those challenges that she was having, right?
They probably feel more comfortable coming to your organization than the employer itself because they don't want to look at like a failure.
Exactly. We trust, and I forgot to mention that when you said, what is a resilience hub? Trust, more trust, and a little bit more trust. Everything that we do is based on it, right? So we have, and when I talked about cross-generational, right? So this, workforce development is very much in that, adult population. But man, the trust that they have with our director of operations, our workforce development specialist, is not to be underestimated. Indeed, Stacy, that's a very good point that you make.
I know our construction industry and young people in particular are looking for that mentorship, and not every construction business owner has the resources to implement such a program. So that's where I feel like your center provides so much value because you guys can mentor them throughout the process and kind of do that job for them.
Absolutely. And that's the beautiful thing about the multiple workforce specific, trainings that we've done is that we have now garnered so much expertise in this area. We have the methodologies ironed out. And so however any of your, construction cohorts would like to have us step in to support them, whether it's even just as a professional assessment of how they're doing what they're doing, right? Because you say, we have all of this in-house. What do you think of it? What are we missing? We can come in and do an assessment and let you know, this is how you can also improve on matters. And then if you say, you know what, Faunteroy Center, you already have this lined up. Why should we reinvent the wheel? Please come in, program manage this component, program manage this training that we would like to have in place with, X amount of cohorts at the end. This is where, we thrive and we get much enjoyment in being part of training up individuals and building their own individual resiliency in the construction industry.
And I just want to add that, with these workforce development programs and these cohorts you put together, there's a lot of different workforce programs around the city and around the area. But it's a difference between, are you investing $1,500 per candidate in their training and education, or are you investing $2,000 a candidate and having the $500 up front to vet them to make sure they're a viable candidate for landing in construction, and that their chances of success are much higher than if you just herd a bunch of people from a street corner and put them in a cohort. I think your failure rate's much higher. So,
and speaking of cohorts too, that's another thing we're pretty emphatic about. While quantitative output is important with all of our programming, outcomes are what we are focused on, the qualitative outcome. And because of that, we do not like to train more than 10 people as a single cohort at a time. Now, we can run parallel programs, but each one, 10. We can stretch to about 15, but we prefer not to do that. Again, why? Each individual has our time. And what we like to do is that cohesiveness that we talked about. A lot of people are coming in not having that village, that support village around them. So if we can create that with that group of 10, where everyone can be heard, everyone can be supported, and they can even be some level of peer mentoring amongst themselves,
Yep.
right? When you think about those 3 A's, right? Maybe someone less ambition is infected by someone else's overambition, right?
Uh-huh.
So the size of the cohort and the willingness to also invest in smaller cohorts. And you can rush to the finish line and end up with nothing, or take your time, do it well, and really end up with something far more robust.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking for. So where are we in the process of the development of the Resilience Hub, and what are the next steps for the Faunteroy Center? And how, more importantly, how can the construction community assist in bringing the Resilience Hub to full fruition?
Yeah, no, thanks for asking that, Mark. It's very exciting. As I mentioned in the beginning, we are expanding from 2,000 square feet to 7,000 square feet. We were also provided funding through DOEE for our solar and battery backup. So we will become a very resilient location, even during power outages. I'm going to do a few shout outs, Mark. The supporters and funders, very important to do that. So we have been awarded twice through the Community Project Fund selection from our representative, Holmes Norton. This fund is provided through HUD. So our first award from fiscal year 22, $910,000. And then we recently, fiscal year 24, also received $850,000. These are our tax dollars going right back into the community. That provided us with the seed funding for construction. And we have a conditional award from DC. I'm going to hold back, I guess, on stay tuned. There'll be a huge announcement. It's conditional, so I feel a little bit hesitant to just kind of broadly put it out there until the dotted line is signed. But follow us on LinkedIn and you'll hear everything about it. But we just got a big chunk where DC is investing in the site so that our construction can just continue to flow without stopping, giving us the possibility of a ribbon cutting next summer in June. And how the construction industry can show up for us during this period. Please reach out to us. We have a Friends of FH Faunteroy that we have stood up. Friends of FH Faunteroy is any entity, individual. Stacy is an example of such friend. Stacy provided support in marketing and really standing up our social media for us earlier this year. And she provided that services in kind. And it was of great value to us. So by signing up at Friends of FH Faunteroy, you can actually tell us how you can show up for us, providing in-kind specialization services that we need, for instance, like Stacy did in marketing, providing materials for us in our construction phase. And when you reach out, you can tell us what your specialization, what materials you have that you would like to provide to us, installation services that you may also have as a company, and also some specialty items that we have designed into this space that is meant to be not only beautiful but also state of the art. Privacy glass solutions. And these may sound like, a little bit trivial, but glass, for instance, and the design of how we've placed glass walls is very important in creating transparency through the spaces. Now, once in a while, you need privacy in those glass walls. That's an example of something very specific. We want to have glass murals to bring in the art and the beauty and the history of where we are in DC. Such amazing history. So through glass murals, we want to be able to transmit that knowledge. There may be a company that specializes in that area. So there's so many different ways the construction industry can show up, both infrastructurally, but also where construction and art meet. I believe that's design technology it's referred to at times. Correct me if I'm wrong. So yes, we have started. We are looking for partners, for supporters in every which way. So if you go to our website, there is a location called Friends of FH Faunteroy. There's a form that can be filled out. Stacy, if you can provide the link to our website.
Yeah,
And that website is constantly being updated because every day there's a new thing happening. So, when you look at it today, it might look different next week. So please keep checking us out.
Yeah,
So-
I did want to mention most of our viewers are in the DMV area, but there's these enrichment centers and incubators that are popping up all across the country, right? So they're looking for the same type of help, and they're usually in the cities, correct?
Not necessarily. Resilience hubs can be both urban and rural areas. It really is. Okay, so the primary task of a resilience hub, it's not meant to be everywhere. What it's meant to do is serve an under-resourced or a environmentally challenged area. So the residents, the community members in that area are lacking in something or some things. And a resilience hub is a response to that. Okay, so it can be rural, it can be urban, and everyone is unique in that way. Each one has its own fingerprint for the community that it's serving.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. Go ahead, Mike.
Yes. I was going to say, so for the construction folks out there, look at the website, think about what time, what talent, and what treasure you have to offer, and sign on to be a friend of the FH Faunteroy Center. It's an important thing. I mean, people don't understand Ward 7 and especially the Deanwood community is very much, a large part of it is in a floodplain. So they have flooding issues anytime there's heavy rains. So part of what the Resilience Hub and the Faunteroy Center has been doing is working on mitigation projects to resolve some of the flooding issues, and working with the Army Corps of Engineers and several other local community groups to resolve some of these issues because there's an environmental need there, as Dr. Montgomery stressed. Very important stuff.
Absolutely. That's definitely another concrete way to show up is, okay, what can we do directly with the community in coordination with the programming that we're doing in this area of flood mitigation? So this is a much needed area of support, and we look forward to the construction industry heeding our call in that area.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. It's been great to have you on. Any parting ways for our audience?
Well, firstly, yes, I just want to say that I believe that what the construction industry has been doing in terms of bringing more visibility to the opportunities that lie within the construction industry is amazing. You can't do it enough, and you can't start early enough. So we also, with our youth programming, we look to have construction partners who would like to come in and propagate that knowledge with our young people. So I would say continue that work. It is impactful and folks are listening. And this is an extremely viable, straightforward manner that when we talk about economic mobility and improving the outcome of individuals, this is a very concrete, not, no pun intended, a very concrete way of doing so. So I just want to say thank you to all those in the construction industry that have reached out to us and asked for our support. Mark, Stacy, you all represent really the face of that industry as well. And our interaction with you has been nothing but fulfilling and enriching. And I look forward to our continued collaboration. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's very good.
Yeah. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. We're going to wrap up here, me and Mark, with some parting words. So next week, next Tuesday, we have Scott Aries joining us. He's going to talk about time impact analysis and project scheduling. And then our guest host, because I'm going to be stepping out, another off kilter show here, is Tom Hughes from Genesis AEC. So they're going to have a great discussion about project scheduling. And Mark, any parting words from what we discussed today?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, you know, as I always say, is the construction industry needs to reach out and you know, teach people about the opportunities in our industry. I mean, Stacey, you've been doing a great job with your chat CTE, getting out there and interviewing folks in the field and finding out what these jobs are about. Construction industry is the career opportunities are an unknown treasure. And, you know, I work a lot with educators to try and educate them about careers in construction, so that students at an early age start to think about where their talents lie. And, you know, I'm a career-based education nut, and, you know, it's wonderful having Dr. Montgomery on to share what's happening down in the Deanwood area with the Resilience Hub coming about. You know, we have to hit every place, and we have to try and capture and help folks find their way. And hopefully enough of them will find their way into our industry, because we need them. And computer literacy is important, even in the field these days. So
yes. Yep. Things are changing. And it's good to, there's so many organizations just like FH Faunteroy that are almost hidden because they have limited resources to market all the wonderful things that they're doing. So it's just, you know, it's good to bring about some conversation on out of the box ways on how you can bring people into the construction industry, because we can't just rely on placing an ad on Indeed or LinkedIn for employment. There has to be other ways that we're participating and connecting with people. So
we need to grow our own.
Yep, we got to grow our own pipeline.
Yep.
Well, thanks so much for being our host today. I really appreciate it. And everyone have a great day, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for having me. All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.